Hi guys, I'm making this video as a follow-up to my previous video about the SCG Top 4 Viktor decklist guide. I got a lot of good feedback and a lot of comments for my video, so thank you to everybody who asked questions, provided some feedback, and I want to go over some of the repeating questions from that video. This is the agenda. Some people want a little bit more information about my matchups at the SCG tournament. I have a small decklist change based off of like the feedback that you guys have provided in the comment. And I was like, I think that's a good idea, so I tried them out. And there were a lot of people requesting for help with sideboarding, Mulligan. So we'll go over that. And at the end, I have future plans for like what I kind of want to do, some future video like ideas that I might have in the future. So more about SCG. I did actually record when I went first versus when I went second in the first game. So this is AKA when I won the dice roll versus when I lost the dice roll. So green here is when I won the dice roll. Red here is when I lost the dice roll. So in the 2 days of Swiss, I actually did go 50-50 on coin flips. Go figure. And I won 100% of the matchups where I won the dice roll, and I only won 60% of the matchups when I lost the dice roll. So everybody knows going first in Riftbound is pretty good, and this deck list is still the same. At the end here, I started to record it which games I was winning and losing, just to make sure that like I was probably like winning all the games where I was going first and losing the games where I was going second. Obviously, it's not 100% like that way. On this fourth and sixth game when I was playing against Kaisas, I went second, but I still went 2-1. So I had to win at least one game where I was going second. Once I was in the top cut, I was the seventh seed out of the top eight. So there were no dice rolls. I was just going second then. Like there was no dice roll for the quarter and semis. The small decklist change I made, I cut the Daring Poro. Like most games, I had the Daring Poro. Like if I had it, I was like fine, but I never really felt happy to see it. And I was also cutting the Daring Poro when I was going first, because when I'm going first, I go to 2, which I'll play Recruit then, and then I'll go to 4, which I would rather play like a 3-drop in Recruit. So I never really found a good time to play the Daring Poro. I also moved the Facebreaker to the side. Facebreaker is nice, but I kind of felt like I was overvaluing it. Although I'm not really sure. And what I replaced with those two is the 2 retreats in the main. I played with it in the past with an old Victor list, and I kind of like forgot about it since. But after reading your comments and then thinking about it again, I was like, yeah, retreat allows me to replay Sprite Mothers, Riptide Rexes, and the Thousand Tail Watcher, which could be really oppressive. And of course, I could also save some of my smaller units from removal as well. So I was like, okay, I could save some of my removal, save some of my units. I can replay some of my more impact larger units, and I get to ramp. I think it has its spot in this deck list. So I put them in, and the Poro. I was happy to cut the Poro. The Facebreaker, I just didn't really have anything else to cut. I could maybe honestly cut the Imperial Decree, which sounds crazy, but I could probably put the Imperial Decree in the side and one Facebreaker in the main or something like that. I also cut the smoke screen from the side. If you're still like, if you are playing against the Darius, it's good to have. And I think it's also good against Mastery because like it'll help you remove like a early Stalwart Poro even with their legend trigger. So if you're going against some matchups, smoke screen is probably still fine even with the power cost. But I think for my general list, I've decided to cut it. I also did try running Dreaming Tree instead of Obelisk of Power, especially with the extra retreats. But I think that while I wouldn't mind if my opponent was bringing in the Dreaming Tree because I could like make use of it a little bit. If you're playing against like Kaisas or any green decks, I think they just make use of the Dreaming Tree a lot better than we can. And so I didn't really like Dreaming Tree. I stuck with Obelisk of Power for now. Here's like a card that I wanted to mention. I think it's like a meme card, but I'm sure that one of you guys will make this work in one of your decks, and it's gonna feel absolutely great to do it. And it's Portal Rescue. I think there's potential for this card, whether in the current set or in future sets. But I just didn't really have space in my deck to put it in because like, what card am I taking out for Portal Rescue? I didn't really want to take out anything else. And I am a little bit like doubtful of how competitively good it is, but I think it'll be just a really fun card to play. My idea is that you can replay Thousand Tail Watcher, Riptide Rex, and Sprite Mother, and they'll still apply their trigger. So you could play Portal Rescue on your opponent's turn and re-trigger Thousand Tail Watcher, giving all of their units -3. Or you could replay Riptide Rex and deal like play a free Falling Comet on just play a free Falling Comet. So I feel like Portal Rescue definitely has some situations where it could be a really fun card if it works out. How consistent it is, I'm a little doubtful on. But I would really love to see if you guys are playing for fun, jamming games with friends, or just some casual Nexus nights. You could try putting like one or two of these in your deck just for funsies, and see if you could make any good combos out of it. The main problem is that you probably can't do this on a turn like on your opponent's turn right after you play like a Rex or a Watcher, because you would have had to have, I guess 9 runes for the Rex combo isn't unreasonable, but like 11 with an Accelerator Watcher probably is not happening. But it's probably still fun if you play Riptide Rex in base, kill one of the things, position a Recruit to conquer, and on the next turn you could conquer with the Rex, and on the opponent's turn after that you can Portal Rescue to just cast Fallen Comet for free. So if anybody wants a fun card to try, give this a shot. Let me know how it works. I'm really excited to see it work. The sideboarding now. If I'm 100% honest, I don't have exact plans for sideboarding. I don't have like a spreadsheet where like, okay, into this matchup I'll sideboard like this, into that matchup I'll sideboard like this. It's kind of just whatever I feel like at the moment, which isn't what you should do as like a very competitive player, but it's just what I did. In the Kaisa, I'll probably take out another Imperial Decree and put in a Facebreaker. Facebreaker can shut down Darius and Kaisa Conquerors, and the Imperial Decree typically doesn't find too much value because they're killing a lot of your units in base anyways. Against Annie, we talked about the Facebreakers being really good against the Vi Right to Win combo, also good into Kaisis and Darius once again. And for the similar reasons, we could cut Imperial Decree, and assuming we used Valma's Lair on the first game, and so now we can't use it anymore, I would also cut the 2 Riptide Rexes, as there's a high likelihood that your opponent can flash or fight or flight their way out of a Riptide Rex. For set, I took out 2 Evangels, and I put in a Harness Dragon Imperial Decree. The idea behind Harness Dragon is it's like a kill ability, so um it gets around Unyielding Spirit. I also thought about like cutting a few singularities because of Unyielding Spirit, and it's something you could definitely consider. I would probably rather cut Singularity over Riptide Rex, because Riptide Rex will at least give you like a 6 might body, which is pretty good into the matchup. So you could also kill Singularities instead of Machine Evangels, especially because the Machine Evangels will give you more recruits, which will empower your Imperial Decree later. So for all these sideboards, because I don't have like a predetermined like list, I'm just gonna give you general like things to consider, and I would recommend that you guys make your final decisions based off of what you see a lot at your Nexus nights and like the different kind of deck lists that your opponent runs. Mastery, once again, haven't played against many masteries, but Imperial Decree and a Harness Dragon is really good here because you could kill all of their big might, especially with the Mastery Legend, with kill spells. Also, Singularity and Riptide Rex are just really important here because they are once again just different ways to kill Mastery's units that are defending without going into combat, because that +2 when they're defending is really hard for us to deal with. I took out Sprite Mothers. I also am not 100% sure about this. I considered taking out the Machine Evangels, but I thought that I wanted the recruits to make a better Imperial Decree turn. Um, but the Sprite Mothers are still good. The 3 my sprite helps push over the defense of the mastery. But I had to cut something. I might cut like lecturing Yordles or something, but I'm not really sure. The Victor mirror, I do have a lot of experience with. All day, every day of the week, you're taking out all 3 Call the Weeks. I don't need to be spending 2 energy and 1 power to trade my recruit for their recruit. And you're gonna put in Grand Stratagem is very important to Victor mirror. Because you're both going wide, and whenever both of your decks are going wide, Grand Stratagem is very important. And Imperial Decree and Facebreaker, like they're not amazing, but they're just better than Call the Week, and they're also better than the other cards in my side deck. So that's what you're putting in. You should still be like I know this sounds like you're putting in bad cards against Victor, but like Imperial Decree can still beat their Grand Stratagem if they want to Grand Stratagem. Like while they're trying to hold. And it's just important that you make a good use of your legend. You want to use your legend ability as often as possible because like you are trying to beat this other deck in a battle of attrition where you're kind of trying to beat each other. So you just want to get as much value from your legend as possible. And I would also try to get really good value from Sprite Mother. Sometimes people like to just send in their Sprite just to get a free conquer point, but I like to save my sprites to actually trade, kill one of their recruits, conquer, and so I'm up. I still conquer, but now they're down 1 recruit, and so recruit management is very important. It's also very important about who gets better value out of their victor leader, because the only way that we have the only way we have to kill each other's Victor leader is with Singularity. So Singularity, even if they are not running like Riptide Rexes or like Cruel Patrons, Singularity is still good to have just so that you could kill Victor leader as soon as it comes out, denying them any extra recruits at all. The last 2 matchups I have sideboarding options for. For Teemo, I took out the 3 Evangels. They're not as useful over here. And I put in the 3 Face Breakers. Face Breakers are just gonna help push back Dr. Mundos, Thousand Tailed Watchers, or even Ember Monks. So Facebreaker is pretty good there. But Teemo, your initial deck is pretty good into Teemo anyways. Aurora is the biggest deck that we're going to have to side against, and it's a little bit different depending on what kind of Aurora you're playing against. I took out 2 Rexes, 2 Retreats, and 3 Singularities. And the reasoning for this, well, actually, this depends heavily on what kind of Aurora your opponent is. If they are running like the really large units, like Misfortune Aura, I think all of their units are typically at least 7 might, besides besides Misfortune herself. So Singularity and Rex, it's difficult to find good value with. You're either gonna need a Stupefy or you're gonna have to push in a recruit right afterwards. And if they have like a primal strength, then it's like game over. So I don't think the deal 6 spells or like the trigger for Rex is very valuable. And retreat, I think I don't really quite need it in this matchup. And what you're putting in is pretty much your entire sideboard. You're putting Imperial Decree to help kill things. You're putting Grand Stratagem to really make your board really big because you can really amass a large army while your opponent is just ramping. Harness Dragon to help kill things. Salvage to kill the Aurora. And 2 Face Breakers so that you can prevent your opponent from conquering with their large might units. Just a general tip against Aurora is when you know that your opponent is reaching that level where they're going to play the Aurora, pull your units out of battlefields. And what this does is prevents them from conquering with Deathbloom Predator, because Deathbloom Predator can only be played onto an occupied battlefield. So if possible, you should still try to get as many points as possible, but if you like double held that turn, and your opponent can play Aurora next turn, or just a Deathbloom Predator next turn, pull out both of your units. So the only way they could conquer is like if they just played an accelerate unit. Like we're just preventing Deathbloom Predator from being able to get a free conquer. So that's just a neat little trick against Aurora players. Mulliganing tip, I think it's quite straightforward. This is just general advice, things to consider for your mulligan. The number 1 thing is your matchup. What are we trying to do as a Victor player? What is my opponent trying to do? And how are we going to shut down their game plan? The other thing to consider is, are we going first or second? And this effectively, like the reason this is important is because Ari started with 2, 3, or 4 runes. You should be able to visualize what you're gonna do for the first few turns in your head. And I was watching another Riftbound video by Soul Riftbound, and he related this quote from chess into Riftbound, and I thought it was really good. Play the opening like a book, the middle game like a magician, and the end game like a machine. And why this quote really resonated with me is because the opening, there's only a few different possibilities that could happen. Of course, depending on the matchup, there are like a lot, but you shouldn't really have too much trouble deciding on your first few turns because you've been through your first few turns. You have limited runes, which means limited options, and you should be very familiar what you want to do in those first few turns. The middle game is where things get tricky because there's often times not objectively correct plays. It's like, should I singularity here, or should I wait one more turn so that into singularity so that I would have more runes into the future? So in the middle game, decisions are quite a bit harder to make, which is where I think most of the skill comes in. But in the end game, where either one or both players are approaching the 8-point mark, there are typically objectively correct plays to be made to prevent them from being able to conquer to 8 points. Now, not always, because sometimes one play might play around like a certain card, but another play might play around another card. So you still have to kind of decide what cards you want to play around. But typically in the end game, where all options are open, because typically everybody has higher runes, but we can tell what they're trying to do because they're trying to either double conquer or they're trying to hold. In the end game, there's typically more just correct decisions to be made on how to play there. So the main thing you're gonna mulligan for is an early game unit to play. When you're going first with 2 runes, or even or just for any game, you want a good 3-drop to play, and your best 3-drops are going to be Faithful Manufacturer and Noxian Drummer. If you are going second in game 1, so you'll have 3 runes. A Daring Poro is also great because you can play Daring Poro and a Recruit. When you're going second on game 1, Daring Poro is probably the best card to play. But I actually did cut Daring Poro, so that's also kind of irrelevant. But you can still keep Daring Poro if you want. And you could also play Electric Yodel. It's another 3-drop unit. It's not as great as the other 2, but it's still fine. I'll draw your card. And I've also had people question, should I play a Faithful Manufacturer or should I play a Noxian Drummer? And it just depends on what your opponent is playing. If your opponent is playing, like, if you have 3 energy and you play a Faithful Manufacturer and your opponent Falling Stars it, feels pretty bad. They kill both of your units. If you're at 4 might and you play the Faithful Manufacturer with an extra recruit, then end it and then they Falling Star, you'll still have a recruit. It's fine. On the other side, if you are at 3 energy and you play Noxian Drummer, does your opponent really want to Falling Star 1 Noxian Drummer? They might, but it's pretty unlikely. And if they do, I don't feel that bad about it. But if I was at 4 energy, I'll play the Noxian Drummer and a recruit, and they Falling Star that. Once again, that feels bad. So just keep in mind what your opponent could do as a response to it. Another thing could be like if they have a gust. If they might have a gust, then a Noxian Drummer could be worse because they can actually gust Noxian Drummer in response to the move trigger, which will get rid of the Noxian Drummer and the recruit. While a Faithful Manufacturer, you could push him with the Manufacturer, it gets gusted, you could still push him with the recruit right afterwards. So just different things to consider about that. And besides this, it's gonna depend a lot for your matchup. You want to identify what cards you want in that matchup. So Call of the Week will be great against decks that run very few units or very large units. Singularity is great into decks that run a few medium-sized units like Kaisa's and Darius's. Sprite Mother is great against aggressive decks like Annie's. Machine Evangel is great into Kaisa's or some other slower decks as well, kind of depends. And Riptide Rex has pretty much a similar use case with Singularity, except it might be less good against purple decks. Thousand Tail Watcher is just a universally good card, but it's best, like best, against enemy decks that are trying to hold with a large number of like medium-sized units, like Mastery, Ari, decks like that. And last thing is different combos that you can kind of see. If I have like a Trevant Glory Seeker, I'll keep it. Because even if I can't trigger the Legion, I can still play it as a 2 energy 2 might, which isn't terrible. Call to Glory is a bit more, whether or not I'll keep it in my opening hand depends on the matchup. But if I have a Call to Glory with a Trevarian Glory Seeker, then yes, I'll keep it so that I can get the combo in a few turns. Stupefy is also great because it enables Legion on Trevarian Glory Seeker very efficiently. So that's also another way that I might consider things. So if you're looking at your opening hand and you do see these little combos, then it's an extra benefit for you to hold on to them. But otherwise, I might pitch out a Call to Glory if there are other cards I'm looking for specific matchups. So what I want to do for future plans, here's a few things I'm considering. A few of my friends have been asking like, how do you play Riftbound? But they haven't played any card games before. So as like kind of killing two birds with one stone, I might just make a video about how to play Riftbound for like beginners to like card games in general, to TCGs in general, to kind of help my friends. And if you are trying to like rope any of your friends into the game, you could share that video with them. I think it's a good timing, especially with Spearforge coming around the corner. Another tip for how to become like a more competitive player, assuming that like you know how the game works at this point, is you should always be thinking about what cards your opponents can play and how to play around them. I did this for myself in Origins for my first 5K tournament, and I'm gonna go back and do it for Spear Force, so I know like all the possible cards that my opponents might be playing. So I might just make a video out of that to share with you guys. I might make another presentation on like the most common cards that I expect to see, and so you could just have that and just reference it whenever you need to. I'm still iffy on the game plan idea. I might ask some of my friends if we want to record some games through like TCG Arena. Some people have asked for it, but it's also like the question of, do you guys want Origins gameplay or do you guys want Spearforge gameplay since it's coming up so quick? So just let me know feedback on that. And if I do cook something up for Spearforge, if it's good, I'll share it. But I don't, just to get this clear, I don't plan to make a lot of videos. I plan to only make videos when I have like a video to make about, because um I want to make videos with like good quality information. Like the video itself might be scuffed. I'm not a YouTuber here, but I try to bring good information to share with you guys. So if I do find something in Spearforge that I think is worth sharing, I might make a video on that. But besides that, I'll just pop in once in a while, whenever some idea comes to me, or if you guys just have requests, I might make videos on that too. But thank you for watching. Leave any feedback or comments, and I've been going through reading all the comments, responding to any questions like that. So keep that up, guys. Thank you.